I'm not ordained and I haven't been through seminary.
I have no professional training.
Exactly.
Well, welcome back to Open to Truth, a podcast all about exploring big ideas and discovering truth together. My name's Clint.
Hey, I'm Tony. Welcome back.
And I think we're just going to have kind of a honest little conversation here about...
I hope they're all honest.
Yeah.
You know, the conversations we have. When you set it up like that, makes it sound like maybe sometimes we're,
All right,
deceitful.
you want to start over?
No, that's fine. We'll roll with it, and we will continue to be honest as we always are in these conversations.
I meant casual, I guess.
Yeah.
More.
Yeah, a frank.
Less structured.
Yeah, it is less, because this is just stuff I've been thinking about, and you probably have as well, somewhat. I brought this to you. Are you serious? Okay. Well,
Spilled it.
It happened. I want to talk a little bit about the role of a pastor. You and I we both work at a church in what we would describe as pastoral ministry. Neither of us have that title. Neither of us are officially on paper.
We're not reverends.
We're not reverends.
Yeah.
We are not pastors on paper. But the kind of work that we do is frequently pastoral. It's referred to as that way. I mean, we both preach. We both sit down do one-on-one sort of ministry with people and pray for people and that sort of thing. And so I've just gotten thinking about, here I am at 31 and thinking about the various paths that lie before me in my life that I could walk. And
if you're not already at the halfway point, you're approaching it.
Getting close. So, and for a long time, my role at the church was sort of music stuff, creative arts that had the sprinkle of pastoring in there as well, of course. But it's just got me thinking, okay, if I were to lean into the more pastoral type of ministry as a way of life and as a path, what is that I'm really leaning into? And so I've got some questions I just want to bring to the table and try to get clear in my head today as we think about this. I'll rattle off a couple of them sort of to lay out where I want to go, but
Okay.
I want to know, what is a pastor? And is the role different from the action of pastoring someone? Like, it seems like there is a title people can get called pastor. And I want to know what comes along with that. Like, what qualifies somebody for that? What disqualifies somebody for that? But then also, is pastoring something that's exclusive to happening within a church? Does it have to happen within a church? Or is it something that anyone can do at any time with anybody? And maybe the issue is just our language. We use it multiple ways, or we use it to mean several things. But
I think that's at play for sure.
that's definitely at play. So, I don't know, maybe we can dive in with our understanding of the role of a pastor at a church, since that's the context we're in. Is that an okay place to start?
Sure. I mean, let me throw this against the wall, see if it sticks.
Yeah.
To pastor is to care for another person's soul. It's the practice of soul care.
Interesting, man.
How'd that strike you?
Here's why, it struck me as very Christian of you. Here's why I maybe bristled just a little bit at that. If we just mean by pastor like shepherding, that's what it means, right? Pastor means shepherd. What does a shepherd do? Provides for the flock, leads the flock, protects the flock. What else does it? That's about it. Goes and helps the struggling sheep if they flip on their back, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's not...
But I am a sheep. I'm one too.
Yeah.
That's why I've never loved that
I
as much.
see. You don't want to be just the king sheep telling the other sheep what to do.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
No.
Well, anyway, the reason I bristled is just because I have started to notice this word pastoring weaving its way into non-church related workplaces. Like my mate, I'm pretty sure, Muzz, I'm sorry if I'm putting words in your mouth, but I'm pretty sure when I was in Australia recently chatting to my mate Muzz, who works for the Aussie government, he's in national security, can't even really talk that much about what he does, but I know that he at least leads a staff team of like 5 or 6 people or something. And I was asking him like what his frequency is with one-on-ones. Like, I was just trying to get a sense of how similar is like managing a team in that to managing it in a church. And he used the word, I don't know whether he said pastoral or pastoring, but he described some of what he does as needing to be pastoral with them. And it was not in any way, he did not mean he reads the Bible to them or prays for them or nothing like that. It just meant I'm shepherding them, I'm guiding them, coaching up a young intern who's not professional. That might be part of pastoring. Like, hey, let me tell you how to be places on time and use a calendar and tuck your shirt in and that sort of thing.
Well, that's why, I mean, what I find helpful about the soul care is it helps distinguish it from the myriad of other adjacent kind of things.
Life coaching.
Coaching, mentoring, counseling,
Great.
Therapy, spiritual directing is
Yeah.
on the rise.
It
that
is.
term.
It's on the rise. Yeah. Well, that's part of my...
So what's this little lane?
What makes it unique? What makes pastoring different? And maybe this is part of it as well. What makes pastoring different than a couple of the things you just mentioned, like spiritual direction?
Is it a jack of all trades, master of none?
I'm wondering.
This is the role in society, or if you will, the body of Christ, that they need to be kind of a little bit good at all those things.
I'm wondering if it's that, because I've heard our lead guy say several times, you know, when he's sitting down with people, I'm not a counselor. He'll say that.
Yes.
I'm not a counselor. But they are coming to him for counsel. They are, you know,
Right.
and he does give counsel, but he's not a counselor.
He's not deploying state-of-the-art knowledge from fields of psychology and psychiatry.
Well, and neither is he licensed as a counselor
Right.
would be.
I think that's the main.
So there's a disclaimer of like, look, this is not financial advice. You know,
Right.
I'm not a counselor, but then there is an expectation that he would offer a biblical perspective, a Christian perspective. He's going to offer some spiritual wisdom, hopefully. Not always. Sometimes there's
Would
situations.
any other not? This is horrible. I probably should know this.
Okay.
Would any other non-Christian religious sect use the term pastor for their leaders?
Great.
Like, are
man.
there?
Like there's rabbis, but
There's not Muslim pastors. There's imams.
I don't know what an imam is.
I view that as like the equivalent of a bishop
Oh, okay.
in their
Okay.
structure.
Boy, we're ignorant, aren't we?
Yeah, I don't know.
If there are any Muslim pastors out there, please write into the show. I would love to hear from you. Or is it just a Christian thing? Hindu pastors?
I've never heard of
Teachers,
such a thing.
yogis.
Priests, yeah,
Like
gurus.
gurus, yogis. Yeah. But a pastor is not those things. Because...
Rabbi in Judaism.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's something about that pastoral ministry, going back to the sitting down, I'm not a counselor, but you've come to me for counsel. When I'm in those situations, it's very obvious to me most of the time that I can't fix whatever problem is in front of me. Like I'm not, and I don't think that's the pastor's job, not necessarily even the counselor's job to fix the problem. A lot of it comes down to being
And why not? Because you can't. It's impossible.
Well, some of it I can't, man. Some of the problems, it's like, there's just a lot that would probably need to change.
Like when we say fix, I mean, I can't just wrangle control over somebody's life and soul in a way that I could fixing a pipe,
Yeah.
you know, where you fix the leak.
Yeah.
You know, you could give some wise counsel on how you've seen leaks such as this been fixed by
Yeah.
behavioral
Yeah.
change and what have you.
Yep. That's fair enough. That is usually what ends up happening. Offering some kind of, well, from my experience, really is what I'm speaking from. Not that I have that much. Which brings me to, and I'm sorry if we're talking in circles, but I do wonder what qualifies. I wonder this often. What qualifies somebody to be a pastor? And here's maybe a bone I have to pick with the church,
Yes.
frankly,
Yep. Go for it.
is maybe the most immediate answer that you would get is like ordination. Are they ordained? Okay, well, maybe, but ordination looks very different across different denominations, across different churches. It's not clear what is even wrapped into ordination.
Right.
There is theological education that maybe gets pointed to. Have you been to seminary? Have you got your Masters of Divinity? And okay, fair enough. There's a certain body of knowledge that comes with that, maybe, depending on which school you go to. But
Yeah,
even
there's
then,
still a whole gamut of schools where there are some texts that I wouldn't even know exist.
texts.
Yeah. But are required at some
Right.
seminaries.
So so there's not some universal curriculum that is the pastor curriculum that you should go through, like a doctor or Like, I don't know, that would be pretty standardized, right? If you want to become a foot doctor, you're going to learn the foot stuff.
Yeah.
And it's going to be pretty much the same.
Podiatry, I think.
The foot stuff. Yeah, yeah.
But even then, like all those specialties in medicine all had to go through med school, and like you had to like basically master anatomy
Right.
for the most
I
part.
want my doctors to know about
Yeah, you're
anatomy.
passing tests, and there's and the standards of excellence are determined by the guild itself.
Say more about that.
These different boards. I'm kind of blanking on what the test you would take after medical school is. That's why I just punt usually to law, the bar exam.
Got it.
So the bar exam is put together by a guild of elite lawyers, or maybe people that have been practicing for a long time, or professors of law at different schools.
Yeah.
And they all get together and say, this is the barometer for excellence in law.
Got it.
If you pass this, then you are now qualified to handle someone's legal
Is maybe,
concerns.
I'm not sure if you know this, the bar exam, is that something that's the same across the nation, or is it state to state?
Probably by state.
State to state.
That sounds right to me.
But either way, there is this agreed upon bar that you need to jump over.
Yeah.
And it seems like that's just not the case in pastoral ministry. So that the curriculum could be different depending on what school you went to. The ordination process could look different depending on what church or denomination you're talking about. But then I think there is this whole piece that maybe doesn't get talked about or is lacking. And this really only occurred to me when I was reading, what's Rob Bell's latest book? Everything is Spiritual. Mm-hmm. He talks about during the ordination process, there being a whole lot of questions asked about, what do you believe about this? What do you believe about that? And sort of lay out your doctrine for us. And no questions asked really about his character, or like, hey, how have you loved someone in the community in this past week? Or what do your children think of you? Or when did you last forgive somebody, and how did you go about that? Like, the kinds of things that people are going to be coming to the pastor with are real world, usually often interpersonal issues or personal issues. And there at least doesn't seem to be that much attention paid to how well ordered the pastor's soul is versus just what does he know and what has he studied, or she, I guess.
Yeah.
Am I crazy for thinking? I haven't just seen much of that. Maybe some churches are out there and they have a vetting process for what kind of character are we looking for. But even then, say you had somebody who had...
It's hard to know. It can be hard to know without being
time
in
spent.
Relationship with them
Absolutely.
for a long time.
I mean, sure, you can look good in an interview or an ordination panel and impress people and be a real SOB on the inside. But sometimes what this leads to, I feel like I've met guys who are full-time pastors who, man, just seem to have no respect for the people or love for the people that they're leading. Like, I will not name names. You wouldn't know them anyway. But I've met people who it's clear they have some kind of disdain for the congregation in general. These idiots that I need to speak to every week, teach every week, and I spend my time studying, so my sermons are top notch. And it's like maybe your theology is spot on. Maybe the stuff coming out of your mouth is spot on too. I don't know. I haven't listened to your sermons, but is that the kind of shepherd that, like, do you really want to shepherd these people? Are you shepherding these people? So I just don't know. I guess I'm just sad about that, or wondering, say you had somebody who is a lay person, ultimately. They've studied on their own, read on their, but on paper, no qualifications. They didn't go to seminary. They aren't ordained, but they know their Bible inside out. They understand the heart of Jesus well, and they live it out. Is somebody like that able to be a pastor? Would that be good for them to be a pastor, or should they go through the system and get your full-on education? Are you disqualified if you don't have that kind of education? Or should you be? Because I get it. You don't want someone to just be winging it. Like, there is a tradition here that we belong to.
So this is where now we're buttressing up against how we equivocate on the word pastor, or just the different inflections of meaning that it has. So there's pastoral ministry, and of the sort that we're doing, and the uninitiated, like they haven't gone through formal education.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pastors like that in our church and in lots of churches.
Yeah.
And then we use the term pastor to refer to one who leads a church.
A body. Yeah.
And that requires a whole other set of skills
Oh, yeah, man.
that someone who is gifted at being pastoral with someone of showing genuine care
Yeah.
maybe may not have.
In
So it
terms
sounds
of-
like the folks you were imagining, the kind of twisted figure of can like perform the duties of maybe as a fantastic leader
Yeah.
of an organization and a congregation, but is kind of lousy at the actual
Personal
not
care.
actual just the pastoral ministry soul care
Yeah.
part of it.
Yeah. And you're saying maybe it could be true the other way too, where somebody's very good at the pastoral care thing, but they should not be leading an organization.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair enough. It's interesting the hats you have to wear, especially if you're in a church that's growing. I mean, this is what we've seen is our church, when I started there 8 years ago, was 300 something people or whatever. And it just kept growing up to 1,800 or something like that. But either way, a church of 1,800 is just very different structurally than a church of 300 in terms of how time needs to be spent by staff, how many staff there are, now who's going to manage them, and all
Because
the decisions.
to have a church of 1,800 implies a whole range of things. You probably had to get some kind of building to house all these people for the gatherings that occur.
Yeah.
And so now you're managing
A building
probably
project.
a multi-million-dollar
Yeah.
fund every year. And you went to seminary to learn about how to exegete Hebrews.
Yeah.
And then ultimately the buck stops with you and the decision making for how to spend millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And so that person wearing the hat of lead pastor, the one who has the authority, positional authority to make decisions, now that person either needs to develop the skill set basically of an MBA
Yep.
or hire someone that kind of has
With
a
that skill set.
or be good enough at volunteer recruiting and relating to a wide range of people
Yep.
that you could in the same week or day or hour meet with a drug addict who just got arrested for beating their spouse
Yep.
and to an extremely successful financial manager and
Yeah.
try to convince them to help lead your volunteer finance team.
Yeah, dude.
So someone that is, I don't know, a congregant, let's say, that goes on a hospital visit and can really be present with someone who just got the news that they have cancer or something, may not at all be equipped to do this other thing,
Yeah.
like the behind the scenes kind of high level leadership stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not saying one's better or worse at all, but just
It's not the skill set.
so I think in particular, like we're wondering, and our roles are like we're paid to be on staff at a church,
Yeah.
and wondering, do I want to pursue being a lead pastor? And
Yeah, or an associate pastor. I mean, I've
Yeah.
never been a pastor on paper, It's always been, you have some designated role, and while you're doing that, pastor the people that you're involved with. Like, it's always been part of what I'm supposed to be doing, is building relationships with the people I serve with and caring for them, and that's expected for sure.
yeah,
But at least explicitly, I've not been a pastor. So I'm just, wondering as well. Well, okay. How about...
I mean, wouldn't you say you've been a worship pastor? Just without the,
yeah. I mean, by what people mean by that, sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
you've done that.
I did do it.
You just haven't led the whole organization.
Right. Yeah. Which, I don't know. It might just be a similar thing scaled up, because there are many ways in which, like, the team I was leading felt like a little church within a church. It's like, here are the volunteers that are kind of the flock that I'm responsible for. It's 120 people or whatever. And you're caring for them, and you've got leaders that are hopefully helping you do that. And
Yeah.
what about taking the opposite end of that question? What qualifies somebody? What would disqualify somebody for a role of, say, like lead pastor? Now, I know you just mentioned, do you have the skills to be able to tap dance like that? Maybe you don't. Maybe you're great in personal care, but you can't speak to a business leader. So fair enough. That seems like a skill or a soft skill.
Also,
you would need.
sorry, just to mention, you're at least in typical American Christianity, your lead pastor is the primary public speaker.
Yeah.
Look, a whole other skill set, man.
Oh, geez.
That we haven't even mentioned yet.
Yep.
Business acumen or just good instincts, being soul care, and then public speaking and having somewhat of rigorous thought and
Something
reasoning.
to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, as well. So you've got like, you need to be skilled at studying.
Being a lover of learning.
Yep.
To have a well to draw from when you're talking weekly.
Oh, yeah. Can't just be repeating the same thing.
It's a strange brew. It's a unique kind of person that can do all of those things adequately.
It is. It is. That's right. I'm trying to work out if I'm cut out for it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about, we've maybe touched on this in that episode on forgiveness. I think we talked a little bit about moral failing on the part of pastors. I'm just thinking through the kinds of things that I've seen disqualified.
We've been through the ringer as a capital C church in the past couple months.
Oh, sure. I thought you
It's
were
a
talking
big
about our
time.
church. I was like, what does he know that I don't know?
No. Like the Hillsong.
Oh, I don't know if I...
Well, not, I mean,
Oh, old mate Houston?
yeah,
Resigned.
resigned
Okay.
over sexual misconduct.
Okay.
I think his name's Bruxy Cavey or Cavey.
I don't know Bruxy.
I think it's the biggest mega church in Canada. Same thing. Is he resigned?
Resigning,
I think he's resigned now.
do we know? And these are, 2 cases out of how many? Was that a self-confession resignation thing, or was it like a, oops, you got caught, get out of here?
I'm not sure.
Don't know. Well, either way, we've seen that happen.
I'm guessing caught, and
Feels like usually it's that.
it's usually that.
It's usually that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Well, because it indicates a hidden life. The moment it's confessed, it's a little bit less hidden.
We'll say more about that. Something about the hiddenness is
If you're caught,
troubling.
then it just has this. It gives this strange texture to any kind of
remorse or apology.
apology you would try to give.
I do raise an eyebrow. It's
Right.
like, well, are you really sorry or just sorry you got caught?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And whereas if you were to confess it, it shows that you took that first step and you're genuinely seeking forgiveness. It's just
Fair-
easier to detect the attitude of the heart.
And
with
fair
it.
enough. I've heard, our lead guy say, what the only thing that would get you fired is if I found out you had some hidden double life or something, right?
Right.
Which, okay, that's interesting. Maybe we can just explore that a little bit.
That's not totally true. I'm sure there's other things that could.
Well, yeah, there are other things you could get
really
fired for
muck
sure.
up the job you're doing.
But for example, how transparent should you expect some megachurch pastor to be with the details of his life? Now, obviously, if there's like sexual misconduct going on, he has very little incentive to be forthcoming about that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably good that comes to light and gets stopped or whatever. But to what degree should you want your lead pastor's life or expect your lead pastor's life to be an open book to you? Do they have any right to surely, it's a dumb question. Do they have any right to privacy? It seems like yes. We need to do an episode on privacy, by the way, and data and stuff.
Yeah.
We haven't done that. Sorry.
sure.
Just, I know we're thinking about it.
Well, transparency and privacy to me it's on a spectrum.
Yep.
And it's a sliding scale. And this is a question about, are you asking a question about the role or in virtue of the relationship that you would build with a particular person in the congregation? So like the role of your therapist, they don't have to be transparent at all.
No.
That's not expected. You're supposed to be, actually. Not leave any stone unturned. Hopefully, as the therapy goes on.
Yeah. If you're lying
that's
to your
just-
therapist,
That's part of the relationship.
It's not helpful.
That's a little bit what I'm noticing in spiritual direction. That
Yeah.
you would go, and the expectation is not that there's mutual vulnerability.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to slide the scale up on transparency for pastors, that role.
Up from counselor.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I just don't know how far. I mean, I guess that's what you're asking. But there's that, like,
Well-
how transparent am I to the crowds, to the congregation, versus like in one-on-one meetings? And I think you can slide up the transparency there as you kind of test to see, is this person a safe place to do that?
maybe let me throw this at you. Maybe it's to do with, I think you'd want your lead pastor to be the same kind of person across all domains. I would not, I wouldn't love it if they presented themselves one way when they preach, and then the shock of finding out about some hidden sin is, oh, they're not at all who I thought they were. Or the way they presented themselves is very mismatched from clearly this whole other side of them I haven't seen. And I could see how that would feel like a betrayal. Like, oh, the person I've gotten to know is just an act, you know? I haven't gotten to know the real person, but I've bore my real soul, you know? And that could feel like a betrayal of trust. So maybe there's a way. I mean, I think you and I both try to do this, at least when we speak. I almost always include some of my own failings in my sermons. At least when I'm preaching on something, I make clear I'm preaching just as much to myself. Like, here's how I blew it this week on this thing. So there's never a I've got it figured out, now you all need to whip into shape. But I don't share everything, you know? I don't share everything from the stage, and some things I probably only share with you and a handful of others, and not people in the congregation. So,
I would say no, it's not right for a congregant to expect a pastor full
access to the pastor's life and every aspect of it. Yeah, that seems overkill. So maybe it's a question for the pastor to be constantly going to God with, of like, hey, how is my integrity? Am I acting with integrity, and am I being honest in the way that I present myself and my walk with you? And
well, not to be cliche, but
please.
I do find it helpful to go back to this, what we say at Heartland a lot for our staff team is the best thing you have to offer someone is your thriving relationship with Jesus or God. And there's something about that strikes me as really true. The times when I'm least excited about pastoring is when there's probably something not quite firing on all cylinders.
The well is
with
dry.
My spirituality, you know?
Yeah.
And then times when that is brimming full, then I feel vibrant, that I have something to bring to the table in this work of soul care, that my soul isn't on fire, and thus can it's just kind of like putting the oxygen mask on yourself before someone else on the airplane. You know, there's a lot of wisdom in that to
good.
how we operate in all of our jobs.
That's a good point, man.
I mean, just imagine having to be a doctor who's grossly obese, but part of your job is to tell people to do their food pyramid.
Oh yeah.
You know, that would cause a lot of stress and cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
Like, what am I doing? I can't even do what I'm recommending.
What do you make of on that? So if the pastor's role is soul care for the congregation, talk to me about how you see realistic limits on capacity. So it's not feasible for a pastor in a church of 1,500 to be great friends with all 1,500 people, right? Or maybe said a more charitable way, it's not even fair, I think, to be attentively caring for the souls of 1,500 people. Just thinking about what that involves, like maintaining relationships. So it seems like, at least I've found in myself, there are limits on how many I can take on and do well. It feels to me like spinning plates, right? Like a relationship needs touch points. You need to communicate, need to get together, spend time, whatever. And there's only so many hours in a day. My memory is sometimes like a sieve. There's only so many concerns that I can pile in there and hold before the mind. If I take on too many, people will slip through the cracks. That's happened. And then they feel like they haven't been cared for, and I've failed at my job to pastor. So how do you approach the inevitable capacity issue? Unless I don't know, maybe everyone has a different number, probably. People probably have different capacities.
Different emotional capacity. Yeah.
But there's something that needs to be navigated of, there may be more people who want a relationship with you than you have capacity to offer to them. So how do you scale the thing?
Or desire.
Or desire, sure, yeah. I could, well,
Just
totally,
because
man.
not all personalities jive really well together.
That's true.
Well, that has to, right? We're allowed to say that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's true. And I can imagine not all time. Maybe there are these. Maybe there's some kind of an ROI calculation you have to do of like, there's some people who would love all of your time. Let's get lunch every day, and we're going to talk about the same things. And it's like, this is not the best use of my time. I need to go meet with some other people. Not that you're some messiah who's going to save the world, but
No,
I can imagine needing to draw boundaries
That's you
as
wearing
well.
the organizational
Yeah.
hat in the role of pastoring. Here's all these things that you're in charge of. And it may even be that you do kind of enjoy. It doesn't even have to be a drag,
No.
which is I think what you can immediately think of with the person who's always asking to meet. Let's say you really enjoy it, but even then, like, you've got to place limits on it as a pastor.
I think so, right?
Because you have this whole mission of your congregation that you're trying to drive forward and be a leader, and that all can't happen if a lot of my time is all with one person.
So how do you scale? How do you scale pastoral care? You have your handful, and then you teach them. You give them the Great Commission to go and also pastor.
You leadership development.
Trickle down. Coach the coaches and coach them.
Yep.
Just coaches on coaches on coaches. It's turtles all the way down.
And I'm not saying that churches have to be like 1,000 people large organizations. So if it is going to be that and go well, then you need something like that. Or if a smaller church wants to do, like, it's just church planting straight, like the moment a really good leader arises in your little congregation, then they go out and plant a little congregation. Maybe it doesn't have to grow into this huge organism, but
it's been interesting just to see the different texture. Like, I think I prefer the vibe of church when it is smaller than I do some big thing where most people feel like strangers, or maybe not most, but many. Like, and maybe that's on me. I'm not doing a good enough job learning names or something. But for church to be at its most enjoyable and valuable for me, is there needs to be a sense of community. Of like, yeah, these are my people. I love these people. Like, and if I'm looking around and I don't know many of the people, just because of the size of the thing, and you've got guests coming all the time.
Did our first 2 episodes, we did 2 back-to-backs on church.
What is church? And
I forget what they were.
Do they still survive?
I don't know if they...
Did they make the cut?
No, I don't know. But I mean, you're getting into a little ecclesiology and the study of the church and what is a church.
Maybe that, it's another episode.
Maybe.
Yeah. But either way, on the scaling piece, it's pick your handful of how many people, or it's different for everyone. Or you have different concentric circles. Like, you've got your inner 3 that you really pour into.
Right.
And then you go out. Because you are meeting with guests all the time. It's not all going to be people that you will be establishing new touch points constantly.
Yeah,
if you're doing your job well. Right? So.
Well, what do you think? Are you one?
Am I one?
Or do you want to be one? Or how would you even...
Well, I second guess myself.
How would you know?
How would I know? One of the big question marks for me is the qualification piece. Like, I'm not ordained, and I haven't been through seminary.
I have no professional training.
Exactly.
William Hung.
Yeah, just a kid with a guitar who's curious. And that said, I think I have demonstrated that I can do the work, and enjoy doing the work. Could I do it for a lifetime? Maybe. Don't know.
I think a big part of it is, do other people see it in you?
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably true. It's not just a pastoring thing. It's whatever life endeavor you're gearing up to set your family and life in motion toward. Yeah. It'd be good to bounce that idea.
People generally affirmative, or are they cautioning you?
I don't know if this really maps on totally, but I just read the other day that the ask the audience little, what is it called? Not a bonus. It's like a tool in your toolkit for Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Lifeline.
A lifeline.
Yeah.
You can phone a friend, 50-50, or ask the audience.
Yeah.
And the ask the audience had a 92% success rate.
Really?
Like you will get
crowdsource. Get the hive mind's opinion.
You will get the question right with your ask the audience.
That's pretty cool.
Pretty much.
Right.
So
when trying to decide,
it's not a bad idea now the key there is you have a diverse audience.
Yeah. Don't.
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? To sign up to go to such a thing, you're probably interested in game shows, but it's all different walks of life and perspectives. So you're getting a breadth of knowledge. Ask the audience in your life is not just your parents and your best friend.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they're your homers for you already. Like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, great.
Yeah. Fair enough.
So yeah, people, if you have enough of those voices saying, and you are genuinely asking and coming to them with, here's what I think pastoring is about, or whatever you're putting your hand to in your life. And if you get just yes after yes after yes, that's a huge indicator,
Mm. Yeah.
Because and another important aspect is the tendency for us to be self-delusional.
Yeah. Sure.
Self-deceiving.
I'm worried about that.
I think it's there's this great little book, I Told Me So, by Greg Tenelsoff, one of the profs at Biola, where I went to school. And in the opening chapter, just cites some studies. I think it's somewhere like 80 to 90% of teachers think that they're above average.
Yeah.
And it's probably, I
think that's true of drivers too. It's like most people think they're better than the average driver.
So many of them are wrong about that.
Right.
Yeah.
Just they have to be.
So the tendency to deceive oneself in either direction, perhaps, like I'm woe is me, I'm not cut out for it, or like I'm kick ass, I'm a rock star, and just having trusted voices that will
be honest with you.
Be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I need to do more crowdsourcing. Then maybe that's the stage I'm at.
I mean, what do you have? I mean, I feel like I've heard people say, "Yes, go do this."
I have heard nothing but affirmations at the moment for anybody I bounce this past.
Yeah.
Oh, is that true? Yeah, pretty much.
What's maybe some asterisks like I see this in you, but this will be the pain point or the growth area or what you'll find hard about it.
Yeah. I just wouldn't want to flame out like you hear so many doing, whether through burnout and signing up for something that's actually not sustainable. Like I can also imagine lots of people telling you should do something, but knowing it's not for me. Like I can imagine a situation where that's going on. Like there's an element of how sustainable is pastoral life for your family rhythms, and maybe that's on you. Like you design the schedule, so set boundaries and don't let the church become a mistress and all of that. I wouldn't want to flame out through burnout or through moral failing in some way, or you just go out spectacularly. I would really want to do it well. I really see it. I see there being. It's just a real responsibility and privilege. Like, I'm consistently surprised by the access people give you to their lives. Like
let's talk about some of the joys of.
Oh yeah, no, it is a privilege. Like when you're involved in someone's wedding, and you can get.
I really like weddings.
You can get cynical about weddings, like how do I have to go to? But like it's the most special day of their lives, and for them to invite you to be part of it, you get a front row seat to. Ideally, ahead of time, you're sitting down and doing some premarital counseling with them.
I really enjoy the premarital counseling.
Me too. You get a feel for their relationship and what God's doing with them and where they're headed, and then.
Or particularly with what we do, or we don't have to do it anymore apparently, but I still require the prepare, enrich assessment.
Yeah.
Just because like I treat it a little bit almost like a talk like Maury or Jerry Springer.
I know.
Because they've each responded to these set of questions and individually, and then we see the score is like, well, Tom, it appears that you scored a 4 here. You strongly disagreed, but Cheryl, you really agreed with that.
Strongly agreed.
All right, discuss.
Yeah.
It's just kind of fun.
Yeah, that sort of stuff's really fun. And then having a chance to be there on a special day like that, that's a privilege. I've been, if not the first, then close to the first phone call when somebody's just lost somebody and they are distraught and they're just going through a death of a loved one and they call you. And it's like, I can't possibly say anything to fix any of this, but I can grieve with you and I can hurt with you and love you through it. You see, just especially I'm interested in, I've got 8.5 years or so with this church, and like you just see change. You see people grow and people having kids, and you sort of have this front row seat to small world Medina, but what God's doing here, and everybody's carrying their own little battles and going through stuff that you wouldn't know about. But I'm, as I said, consistently surprised at how willing people are to like open up their life to me, and I don't take that lightly, I guess. Like I really see that as a responsibility and a privilege. Anytime I'm on stage talking about what God is like or what God might be like, that to me is such a heavy weight of like, is there something bigger that I could be discussing, you know? And who am I to be discussing it? But here they are, sitting there, listening to the things I'm saying, and I'm sure many disagree or whatever, but some of them are going to take what I've said and then try and apply it this week in the way that they live.
It'll be deeply formative for their entire lives of how they conceive of God.
I know.
Based on what you were saying.
Well, that's when you say it like that, it sounds so arrogant or something. I don't mean it that way. I just mean it is unusual. It is unusual.
That's the role of the teacher.
Yeah.
The pastor is required to wear the hat of the teacher at times. That's what teachers do, man. That's what all of your teachers ever were doing. They had the audacity to share their
teach me about geometry. Yeah.
This is the agreed upon set of facts. Geometry professionals endorse.
Yeah. It's a very personal thing, and it is cool. I would just want to do it very well. Maybe I'm overly terrified of failure, but
you're more terrified of the like your life imploding rather than just like external success, like the church dwindles due to people not liking you.
I'm not worried about that, really. I mean, maybe I would if I started to see it.
That's more my fear.
Happening, really. People would just stop showing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it would be hard not to take that extremely personally.
Yeah. No, I could see. Maybe if that started happening, I would take that personally. But as I said before, like, I kind of like smaller community. To me, it'd be like, okay, this is more manageable. You could do a church this size.
Right.
But no, I'd be more, I don't know about my life imploding, but just me like dropping the ball in spectacular ways and it becoming obvious to everybody what a fraud I am and that I'm not like, I should not be in that position. That would be the fear is, you know, I already live with imposter syndrome. Just that would get ramped way up.
In a way that another career would not.
Not necessarily.
Hard
but
to know. Haven't really.
Not sure.
You haven't done one as much.
No, I feel like a fraud in other industries as well. Like, I do video and I do sound and stuff, but there's always someone who like knows more than you and is better than you.
Yes.
But there's something about the pastoral ministry that puts you in, it feels like, in a bit of a fishbowl. Like you kind of are the face of this organization or community, and like it's very, like even just practically most Sundays, there's a large crowd gathered around you on a stage, like watching you. It's very public, central. You're a bit under the microscope in a way that I don't think I have anything that I really need to be hiding or worried about, but like there is just this pressure of, hey, everyone's watching.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's my own neuroses that's amplifying that. Maybe people don't care anywhere near as much as I feel like they might. But that, I'm just worried about public disgrace.
Yeah. And if you're a church above 150 or 200, then you're almost assuredly going to have other staff that report to you.
Yeah.
So another
Yeah.
hat is the hat of the manager.
Right.
There's just a lot that you need to do in this role.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, I don't think it's totally unique to like the church world. I mean, leaders in high positions on org charts across industries, I'm sure, face this feeling of wearing a lot of different hats, depending on the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's even what it means to go up in the org.
Increasingly competent.
You're stepping into more diverse types of conversations and problem solving.
Yeah.
But just that extra weight, there's a weight there of these people's livelihoods depend on some the decisions I'm making.
Oh, if you've got a staff team now. Yeah.
Or if you're worried about what you're saying about what God's like, imagine you're in charge of the staff team, and so you're kind of also responsible for what everyone else is saying is what God is like. Because what if they say something goofy, then it falls back to you.
Yeah.
Why'd you give them
the platform?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it's complex.
And so that's why I think like the average age of lead pastors is 40.
Is it?
Mm-hmm. By then, you've had enough life experience and like slowly putting that weight on where you're used to it. You know, it's not all of a sudden you're nothing.
At 22,
you were not nothing. You're
nothing.
You're inexperienced, and then someone hands you this whole satchel of lead pastor of a sizable church where these different hats come into play.
Yeah.
So that's something to think about. I mean, you're 9 years out from the average age.
Yeah.
Think of how much you could.
I'm like halfway. If I just did 8-9 years.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of change in the last 9 years. When I think about the stuff I had to step into, conflict resolution and that sort of thing at like 23.
Mm-hmm.
It's very uncomfortable at the time, but very helpful to step into it and learn how.
I guess dial up my transparency meter a little
slide
bit.
It up.
I think, and I think you've said this before as well, but the deconstruction journey of how much my beliefs on a number of important Christian doctrines has changed.
Mm-hmm.
I would just be nervous that any more of that would be too destabilizing for a currently to take on more responsibility at a currently existing church.
Yep.
Where the ethos of, I guess, the intellectual virtues is not totally endorsed by the congregation.
Mm-hmm.
What excites me is like if I were to do this one day and like be the lead guy or whatever, or a co-lead situation, if we were to ever start a venture, I don't know. I mean, there's a reason why I like what we're doing here.
Yeah.
The values on display here, hopefully, the intellectual virtues, being curious, being open, being thorough, having poise and not freaking out when people disagree.
Yeah.
Humility, able to say like, hey, I've been thinking wrong about that. I need to change my mind. And the courage to do so.
Those are rare words, man.
They're not, unfortunately, it's just very rare in the church.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
So a church body that exhibited those in the context of we're chasing after understanding what God is like. Let's leave no stone unturned. People with that, you can disagree on nearly everything and be a part of this fellowship. Yeah.
That excites me. That's cool.
Because that's what I'm called to do as a Jesus follower in the first place.
Yeah.
Jesus had fellowship with people that thought super differently from him. He reclined at the table of the Pharisees, and he did not think like the Pharisees did.
Yeah.
Just as much as he reclined with the prostitutes and drunkards, and
Mm-hmm.
that didn't stop him from keeping a genuinely open table. And so I dream of a church that's like that, and I don't know how it works, and that sounds extremely messy. And
Yeah.
how do you get anything done if no one's in agreement about stuff? There's all those
Yeah.
headaches,
Yeah.
and maybe you do need some agreement.
Yeah.
And what if we just shifted them away from this hard line set of historical doctrinal topics,
Yeah.
like a specific thing of atonement,
Yeah. Right.
but rather, I guess some of these virtues
Values or something.
and ways of being in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of getting back to what you train for is what you get. So like we have churned out pastors and leaders because the seminary education was all just informational.
Yeah.
Learn this set of dogma and go tell people about that stuff.
Yeah.
And we didn't give one lick about their character or how they were going about their pastoring.
Or the soul care stuff. Yeah.
And
It's
so
info heavy.
that I think that gets reflected in all these different statements of faith, or
Mm-hmm.
what are the organizing principles for why we're gathering? Well, it's because we all kind of agree to this list of doctrines.
Yeah.
Really? That's just not as exciting to me.
Yeah. Right.
You know,
right,
it's
right.
more I don't have it totally filled out what I would want a church that we would lead to be like, but we're gathered around pursuing God in a certain way.
Yeah. Right.
In a certain posture of those things.
There's a
keep saying the
culture.
list. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good, man. I appreciate you sharing that. I guess I feel the same way.
The question is, are there enough people where we live? And then
To do something like that.
yeah.
Yeah. Or was it just be you and me
Yeah.
doing the podcast? Doing the podcast. I don't know, man. I've chatted to people who get excited about that kind of idea when I pitch it to them. I think there are, I think there are enough people who have been through or are going through similar sort of deconstruction-y type journeys that would appreciate a community where those sort of intellectual virtues and values were the tie that binds. Maybe there's a place
One issue
for it.
I've seen though is that so often it just seems really often the case that the deconstruction crowd is really tightly related to like progressivism and like, I don't know, call it left-leaning liberal politics. And I'm not saying that.
No, I know you aren't.
I'm envisioning a community where there might be people, there would be people that share a table that both do and don't think homosexuality
Yes.
is okay.
Yeah.
Like, not by me saying this, I'm not saying like I want everyone to be progressive.
No.
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 It's the hard work of how do we come together with true diversity,
Yeah.
not your goofy pigment of your skin,
Yeah.
and all this stuff, but the diversity of your soul and your worldview.
Yeah.
How do we bring that together in a way that's healthy?
Yeah.
I like that vision.
Me too. Let's do it.
Okay.
All right. Well, I think that's about all I was wanting to discuss on this. So thank you. Thank you for listening along and watching along. Hopefully these are the kinds of discussions that Clint and I are going to have anyway, because I just want to know, sort this thing out. So we turn on the cameras and let you in too. If you're a pastor from some non-Christian type of organization, please write in. I really do want to know.
But you go by pastor.
Yeah. Like if that's your title, I'd be really curious to know. You can always reach out to us. Like, we'll interact with your comments, whether you leave them on this YouTube video or you can write to us, mailbag@opentotruth.com, if you've got a question that you want to end up on a mailbag episode. We love that. I love going through your questions and stories. So be sure to check that out. And then there's a blog. Tell them about the blog.
Yeah, so we moved over to Substack. So it's
Oh, come on.
No, it's substack.com/staycurious. So I titled the blog
The Stay
now,
Curious
instead
blog.
of just saying the Open Truth blog, Stay Curious.
Substack.com/staycurious.
Yep.
Got it.
And that comes out weekly.
Great.
So you're not going to get overwhelmed by your inbox. And it's just a way of raising your hand and saying, like I listen sometimes. I'm a part of this little Open to Truth community. That helps a ton.
Yeah.
Because right now I'm just looking at numbers on views of videos and audio downloads, and I don't know who they are.
Who you are.
Where are you coming from?
Yeah,
what
yeah.
are you doing?
Yeah.
So yeah, just let us know. We'd be really thankful.
Awesome. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Stay curious.